It's sort of a video-oriented day on the blog, have you noticed? So you might be wondering why no vlog from Althouse in so long. How come there weren't any vlogs out on the, and I'm saying vlog, vlogs, video blogs. Why weren't there any out on the road? Why didn't she take the camera, the little camera with the laptop and just show driving around in the car and stuff like that? Well, the fact is I didn't. It was hard to do things like that. And now I'm back at home. It's a quiet time here in Madison, Wisconsin. It's a dreary day here in Madison, Wisconsin. And I've been, trying to get a little work done, but also trying to, I just got waylaid into some YouTube videos. Does that ever happen to you? Does that ever happen to anybody? Or is it just me? No, actually, I don't usually get that absorbed into YouTube, except making little vlogs that I will put of my own to put up on YouTube. But I noticed today that Mike Douglas died. Mike Douglas was this afternoon TV, the Oprah of his day. I mean, you might think that before Oprah there was Phil Donahue. But before Phil Donahue, what was there? There was Mike Douglas. There was Mike Douglas and there was Merv Griffin, similar kinds of talk show afternoon guys. They were very low key, it was, it's much more energetic now with Oprah and Ellen and, Rosie O'Donnell did stuff for a while, but back in those days, it was unusually low key, and it was kind of, the host himself was very square and was just trying to understand, what these kids were doing with their new music, or he would bring out some old time kind of a star and they'd do a certain amount of music, but if you go back and find the clips in YouTube, it's very stunning how slow moving they are, how dragged out they are, unlike, say, a vlog of today. People just sat around talking like they would at a, boring dinner party that you would just wonder, when is this going to end so I can go watch even more boring people on television. Everything was boring in the past, Nowadays, everything's very fast moving. Everybody talks fast and everything is very quick edited and so on. That's, post 1980. Before they started making everything all edited together. MTV did that. That's what they say. I don't know if that's true. But if you go back and look at the old clips, which you can do on YouTube, you'll see things were rather slow moving back then. And I was trying to pick out some good clips with Mike Douglas because he died. He was 81. He died. Sad that he died, but he was an old guy, and his time was way in the past. His time of being a public celebrity. I mean, I'm sure as a private person, he was alive. He did whatever he did as an old person, but his time of being a public person was very long in the past, just the strange, distant past. And going back and looking at those clips and seeing how they look, well, of course, they also look very blurry because of the way, the low-fi quality on YouTube. It all seems rather tragic and nostalgic and sad and stuff like that, but some of it is cool. I found one where he was talking to Johnny Cash, but I also found one where he was talking to Frank Zappa. They were talking about drugs. Frank Zappa was against drugs, and then Mike Douglas goes on and on about being against cigarettes, and they just sort of blab about that rather aimlessly. Nowadays, when someone goes on a talk show, they have it prepared what they're going to talk about, and they reel out the story rather quickly, like it's all rehearsed. But there, they just, show up and start blabbing about things and just see how it goes, like you would, if you just had some people over to your house to hang around and have a conversation. There's something charming about that, also something kind of just puzzlingly dull about it. But seeing Frank Zappa on one of those YouTube clips, I kind of got distracted from being interested in Mike Douglas, who died, to Frank Zappa. So I looked up Frank Zappa on YouTube, and of course there's like 1,000 clips that people have put up. So I did a couple more posts just now using Frank Zappa. One was from 1963 when he was on the Steve Allen show, and he was playing the bicycle. So he was doing this sort of noise music, or he had orchestrated. He was trying to talk about this kind of avant-garde presentation of noise that involved playing two bicycles, and he got Steve Allen to play the bicycle, running a bass bow across the spokes and blowing into the handlebars and squeaking the squeaky seat and things like that. And then they brought out an orchestra, and at what point Frank Zappa tells the orchestra to, try not to make musical tones. In other words, try to play things that aren't music. And then, so that was interesting. You should go look at that. That's kind of a long clip. Just the length of the clip is amazing. On YouTube you can't, unless you have a professional, unless you pay for a non-free account. You can only put up clips that are 10 minutes long. So if your clip is longer than 10 minutes, you have to break it up into 2 parts, as this one was. So here's this talk show, the Steve Allen Show. And, they bring out this unknown Frank Zappa, is before he has any kind of a mustache or beard. And he's just like really a thin little guy. And he looks a little bit like, he's styled like Rod Serling in this very narrow suit. I guess it's a gray suit, it's black and white TV, and the narrow tie. And just the overall look is very similar to Rod Serling on the Twilight Zone, in the early Twilight Zone episodes before it was in color. That was kind of a sharp look, narrow lapels. I remember when those styles came out and when it seemed like a really cool idea to have like just the narrowest possible lapels and the narrowest possible tie. I think if you go back to that Mike Douglas clip, it was during the era, the mid-70s, when the idea was, let's make the lapels as wide as possible. Let's make the tie as wide as possible. It's funny that things like that seem like a good idea. Let's just go completely to the extreme, the narrow as possible. And then, but it's still the same old conventional men's clothes. It's like, let's do something really exciting, but you'll still be wearing a suit and tie. So, okay, we'll make the tie just as wide and the lapels, and then when they really narrow. Anyway, there's clips on the blog that show both of those extremes of the lapel tie combo. And in 1963, when Zappa's on the Steve Allen Show, it's quite interesting to see him, as a complete unknown, being tolerated by Steve Allen, and have this whole, I don't know what it is, like almost a 20-minute segment built around him. And it's really presenting avant-garde music, and he talks about composing and having an orchestra, and it's just talk about things that wouldn't be on TV today. I mean, even with all the extra channels, all the cable channels, you don't see things like that happen, and that would have been network TV. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? And then the other Frank Zappa clip that I found and put up was, I don't know if it was an outtake or it was actually part of the show. I don't remember ever seeing it, and I think I watched every episode of The Monkees when it was originally on. I was a huge fan of The Monkees. It was a really good show. They should show it more. I don't know, is it ever on Nickelodeon or something, or TV Land? It's a pretty good show. And so Frank Zappa was dressed as Mike Nesmith, although he still had his classic beard and mustache, but he was wearing the hat, Mike Wool Hat Nesmith. I guess when they invented the Monkees, they thought the Mike Nesmith character was so boring that they had to give him something distinctive, and they made him wear a hat, and they made his middle name be Wool Hat. Isn't that demeaning to the poor man? The others, I don't know, they seemed to have enough going for them that they didn't have to wear a special article of clothing and have that article of clothing made into their middle name. But poor Mike Wool Hat Nesmith had to do that. And so then we see Zappa on the show imitating him with the wool hat and so on. And then Mike Nesmith is imitating Zappa. And he's wearing this huge nose, so that next to Zappa, who's pretending to be Mike Nesmith will look like Zappa, so it has to be like an extra long nose to like be longer than the one that Zappa already has to have. So they do a little interview where Zappa pretends to be interviewing Zappa. It was pretty cute. It's pretty cute. And then in the end, they, similar, kind of echoing the old Steve Allen Show, playing the bicycle, they play a car, basically banging it, breaking it up. And that might remind you of some things that were done in much later videos in the 1980s. You remember that Art of Noise video where they go around breaking things up and sawing things, and you know the one I'm talking about? Close to the, I can't remember the name of that, but I think the band was called Art of Noise. It was one of the best videos of the 1980s. I'll try to link to this. I'll try to link to it in this post so you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm just vlogging because I'm in the mood to vlog. It's a Friday afternoon here in Madison, Wisconsin. And I hear a car starting up out there, little birds tweeting outside, and it's getting dark. It's a Friday evening. It's 5:24, and that completes the vlog.